It's the week before Christmas, and all through the house, 4 Brooklyn vegan bloggers are here today for our special BV 2025 end-of-year list edition of BV Weekly. I'm Dave, and today I'm here with Andrew, Bill, and Amanda. What's up, everybody?
Yo.
What's up, Dave? I thought that was going to rhyme more.
Yeah, sorry. My freestyling days are over.
I'm excited for the deep dive about Avatar, Fire, and Ash. That's not what we're talking about?
Well, since you asked, today finally the Brooklyn Vegan 2025 Best Albums of the Year list is live. You can go look at that this morning or whenever on BrooklynVegan.com. We'll also put the link in the show notes. And today, we're going to talk about that list, our own list today. And all 4 of us on this call contribute to that list every year. And so, of course, we needed to get everyone on to talk through it. And but first, what'd you guys do this week? Anything good?
I did some good stuff this week. Well, one very fun, awesome thing in particular, my very favorite New York City holiday tradition, which is the Ally Coalition, which is the LGBTQ equality organization that Jack Antonoff and his sister Rachel Antonoff started. They have a talent show, a variety show. This was the 11th year that they have done it. And they used to announce the lineup in advance, but now it is an entirely surprise lineup. The only people that will perform are bleachers. And there's some guests who return every year. But other than that, it's all surprises. And when I say surprises, I mean big surprises. Like this year, we had Haley Williams, we had Florence Welch on stage together, which is just totally wild. You had Trey Anastasio returning for the 3rd year. You had Samia, who performed with Trey, with Claude, Hank, and oh my goodness, Annie DeRusso. Sorry, Annie. Just a lot, so many people. That is Kelsey Lou performed, just an incredible wealth of talent, all for this amazing cause. And every year it's just the best event ever.
That's so cool. There's not a lot of shows like that, at least in New York, and probably, maybe there's more in LA, but just that, the level of clout Jack Antonoff has, and he pulls together these A-list celebrity musicians for a big surprise show every year for charity. It's in the past has Taylor Swift, Lorde, right?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to go a bunch of years, not every year, but a bunch of years, and I've seen Lorde, I've seen Jason Isbell, Mitski has performed, Lana Del Rey has performed, so many huge people. And say what you will about Jack Antonoff, I know among pop stan social media, he gets some shade sometimes, but I think it's just a testament of how great he is at what he does, that how many people are working with him. And bleachers, maybe some people on this podcast right now, I don't know if most of us are listening to bleachers casually a lot, but live, they bring it. Those folks bring it. They're a really fun live band. I would defy anyone to see bleachers and not have a good time. And yeah, I love this series, and it's just such a pleasure to go every year.
People should go check out Amanda's photos from that on BrooklynVegan.com and Brooklyn Vegan Instagram. They're awesome. And as well as some video as well. So that's you get the special covers, you get, cool stuff happen, special moments.
Yeah.
I didn't go to anything that epic, but in the past 2 weeks, I did go to 2 metal shows, which I'll say were by two bands that are going to appear on our best, sorry, spoiler alert, best metal albums of 2025 list that isn't out yet. Last week I saw Imperial Triumphant, who put on a very visual show because they wear these crazy robes, costumes with these gold ornate masks. And for this special holiday show, they made it called Jazz in Hellfest, and it was like two jazz band openers. These are all related people. I won't get into the specifics, and then Imperial Triumphant played for the first time with a 6-piece horn section. They also brought out a burlesque dancer for one song. She also appeared in one of their videos. They have fire on stage. They're very, they move around a lot for people in masks and robes as well. So it's like a lot of guitar heroics. That was a fun one. They're death metal band, New York City death metal band, Imperial Triumphant, great album this year. And then more recently, just the other night, I went to see Primitive Man. That tour they're on tour with 3 other bands, but I'll just talk about Primitive Man, one of the heaviest bands in existence right now, with really, every one of their albums is special and just slow and heavy. And they do also, I guess you would call it, death metal vocals and just really powerful stuff. And they were amazing as well. And one of the highlights, though, is they're not always slow. They actually speed it up a bunch, which are some of the highlights of the show. So yeah, I did both of those. Pretty good. Bill, Andrew, have you been out?
I have been at my parents' place all week in West Virginia, so I've missed things like the Yola Tango Hanukkah run, which is halfway through at Bowery Ballroom. But right before I left, I did go see the penultimate show from LCD's Sound System's 12-show run at the Knockdown Center, and they're always great there. I think people that may not love them already will like them, seeing them there. It's loud. They're in a comfortable space. They're like having a good time. They get to go home every night. I took my girlfriend, who I had to kind of drag there. She's seen them a few times and has never been won over, but I think this time maybe did it for her. They didn't really have any surprises, and I have to say, I always love seeing them, but I'm really ready for them to put out a new record.
Yeah, I guess there's some rumors. But
James Murphy says that they're working on a new one, but he said that a year ago when they released that new song X-Ray Eyes, but then it's been quiet ever since. So, and they didn't play a new song this entire run, so who knows?
It's so interesting how LCD has become this band that plays this residency at the end of every year now in New York City as just like New York City's house band. Of course, we won't get into the fact that they broke up and came back and now do this. But we're spoiled. We have this option to go see LCD Sound System every single year in December. And so I'm not in the mood to do that again. But I just kind of you implied, every time I do go, I'm like, why did I doubt this?
Yeah.
I went to their run last year at Knockdown Center, and it was, like Bill said, a total blast. Such a great live band. And I really appreciate just how from the records, they could easily you could assume it's going to be a lot of electronic and pre-recorded stuff. And instead it's a many-membered, very extremely live act. And almost felt like a jam band at times, which I think if you've never seen them before, it might be surprising.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I haven't really gone to shows in a while for personal reasons, but there were 3 things that happened in live music this past week that I wished I would have seen, including Cameron Winter covering This Is Lorelei. That was incredible. The video of that was I want a recorded version, please. Also, I want a recorded version of Waxahachie's This Is Lorelei cover that she had performed a few times this year. MJ Lenderman joining Jason Molina's band, the late Jason Molina's former band, Magnolia Electric Company, who are now on tour with Will Johnson from Centromatic. Incredible, because MJ is the heir to Jason's throne. So that was amazing to see. And also Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die singing with the Dillinger Escape Plan, covering 9 Inch Nails' Wish, which I believe was the exact same night that former Dillinger singer Greg Puciato and former Every Time I Die members their band Better Lovers was doing their holiday show in Buffalo. So I wonder if that was planned. But that was really cool to see also. So yeah.
Drama in with those bands, but at least we're getting lots of good music out of it.
Lots of good music. That Many Eyes EP from this year was awesome.
I love the Many Eyes EP from this year, and I'm so happy that he went back in the Every Time I Die direction of music.
Yeah, it's heavier than the first record. I like though the kind of grungier moments on that first record, the cleaner vocal stuff. But yeah, I miss Every Time I Die though. I'm not gonna lie. There's something about having them all together.
All right. Many Eyes EP, too short, not eligible for our end of year list, but let's get into the end of year list. We are going to, all right. So we did a top 55 albums this year. Sorry, we try to do only 50. It's not the first time it pushed it to 55, but,
You just love Sammy Hagar.
yeah. And then we need to, we will have some honorable mentions as well. But so I think for the format of the show, what we're going to do, we're not going to go through all 55. For the full list of 55, check that link in the notes or on our website. But what we're going to do is we're going to go around. We each brought 2 of the albums that are on the list that we'll start each with talking about. And then we'll count down the top 10. And then we'll end it each with an honorable mention that didn't make the list. From each of us, a personal one that maybe we would have put on the list, but didn't make it. It's science. All right. So, Andrew, why don't you start with one of the albums that made our end of year list? Go.
Sure. So I'll start with Florey's album Sounds Like. As we've talked about a lot on this podcast, it's been a really good year for the kind of countrified indie rock stuff. And a lot of that stuff is on our list. And I think, if you're into it, like, it's just been a wealth of treats all year. And if you're not, I could see maybe it starts to blur a little bit. So I'll say that Florey really stands out, I think, from all the bands in that world. This record, like, my elevator pitch for it is like, it just sounds like a lo-fi garage rock version of like Grateful Dead, Crazy Horse, and Bob Dylan and the band. And it's definitely like a road record. The last album sounded like campfire sing-alongs. This sounds like a band that's been on tour for a while. It's very jammy, but also with a really sort of sentimental edge to the songwriting and some really pretty beautiful songs in there. So yeah, I think it's a highly recommend for, whether you're into the kind of MJ Lenderman Wednesday stuff, or even if that Grateful Dead Crazy Horse comparison piqued your interest. I think this record is worth a shot.
Yeah, and it's worth spending time with and giving it a lot of listens, because I feel like for me it was a grower throughout the year, inspired by you and others here that kept saying how good it was. And so it wasn't something that I listened to once and forgot about. I kept listening to it over and over. And by the end of the year, it's just like it's fully locked in, and it really rewards. It really shows its greatness over time. All right. If no one else has anything to say about that one, Amanda, why don't you go?
Sure. So I'm going to talk about Rosalia's Lux. I think it's been not by me, but I think it has been discussed on this podcast how there wasn't really a consensus pick for album of the year this year among the many publication lists that we looked at. But if there was a consensus pick, this may have been it. And I think for a really good reason. I think it's just Rosalia just continues to shapeshift. Like, she's gone from flamenco to like electropop and reggaeton, and now she's making this like opera album, and it's so impressive. Like, she sings in 13 different languages. Some of the inspirations were like female saints and like philosophy writings. So you have this like very impressive backstory, but then also the music is just so gorgeous and lush and like cinematic, just really like something you can really just get lost in. I think it's my favorite Rosalia album. I really love it.
Oh, wow. And don't forget Bjork's on there. Huge highlight for me. The more I
Yes.
listen, I'm like, oh, when you notice Bjork again, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, when they collaborated the first time, that was exciting. But this time, the song that she's on, Berghain, that is just incredible. What a song. I think Grimes wrote on Twitter that she cried the first time she heard that song. And honestly, I can't say I did the same, but like fair.
Is that the song that topped Pitchfork's readers list of songs?
I believe so, yeah.
All right, we're moving right along. Bill, what do we got?
All right, my pick is Pulp's More, which is their first album in 24 years. And there were a couple this year, found a lot of bands from the 90s, or bands who are best known from the 90s, like making really good records. And Pulp was definitely one of the more surprising ones, though. If you followed their tour last year, they debuted so many of the songs that were on More live. It became obvious, like after the sixth or seventh song that they pulled out in an encore, that they were going to make a new record. And they really delivered. It was sort of, the impetus for this was the death of bassist Steve Mackey, who died a couple years ago. And that sort of had Jarvis adopt this, like, there needs to be more joy in my life and we need to do things that are positive. So he sort of got the band back together to tour, and then they started writing songs, and it's a very natural sort of thing. They recorded it in like 2 weeks, which is the fastest they've ever made a record. And it's got lots of classic pulpisms. There's a disco song. There's a very, very Britpop song. He even drops a "Are You Sure?" like from Common People in a song. But there's also some new moves, and there's a lot of songs about aging and mortality, as you might expect. But there's a lot of humor, and it's light on its feet, and it's just a terrific record. And on this one song, "Grown Ups," which is the super Britpoppy one, he sings, "I am not aging, I'm just ripening, and life's too short to drink bad wine." And I just thought that sort of summed up the record to me. And I'm so glad that they're back. I loved Jarvis's solo career and the Jarvis album that he put out at the start of the pandemic, which sort of got lost to time, I feel like. But I'm really glad they're back, and I hope that it continues.
Yeah, I think this record is really good too. I think, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of kind of 90s era comebacks, but I think this one, more than a lot of others, it just really feels very, very fresh. I think like it doesn't sound like an old band trying to relive glory days or something.
Right.
Although there, like you said, there is I think the disco song you referred to, you mean "Got to Have Love"?
Yep.
Like I think that was written in the 90s, right?
Yeah, both that one and "Grown Ups," the Britpop one, were both sort of started like around 99, like before they made "We Love Life," their last recorded album from 2001. And they were just never finished. And so he brought those two out and wrote, I think, almost entirely new lyrics for them. But you can tell that they both got their start, in their sort of peak time.
You can tell. And like, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I think those kind of are my favorite moments on the record. So like, maybe it almost feels like cheating a little bit, but at the same time, I do think the record, it just sounds so modern, which is great. Like they just sound like as much of a current band now as they did then. And I just want to give a shout out also to James Ford's production. I feel like he's been on fire, and I think he's probably no small part of why it does sound as fresh as it does.
Yeah, agreed.
As always, the Brooklyn Vegan end of year list covers many genres, which makes it that much harder for us to create, since we are covering so many genres on the website. And that includes pop, rock, all kinds of rock, some electronic, obviously country is part of rock, but it also includes hardcore and, of course, metal. So we're always working metal records into our end of year list. And I guess I'm like resident most metal guy around here. So my next pick is actually the only death metal album that appears on our list this year. Not the only metal album, but the only death metal album, I think, which is Ancient Death's Ego Dissolution. This is an album that I have been going on about all year, here and there, on this podcast and elsewhere. Massachusetts band, definitely my most played metal record of 2025. It's a proggy death metal record, like we also call Blood Incantation, Tomb Mold, and Horrendous, all bands that have made our end of year list in the past. That it's also a band that has felt very under the radar all year, and I think that's partially because they've played like almost no shows. I feel sure about this because ever since I discovered the record early in the year, around when it came out, I've been following them and waiting for the announcements. But it's like I said, they live in Massachusetts. They just played like a single show in Maine, I think. I think they played like one show in Rhode Island earlier this year. And like they still haven't been to New York. I'm sure about that. And they definitely haven't toured. So I don't know. They've got other things going on or what. But this, I do think if they toured this album more, people would be talking about them more. But meanwhile, it actually has showed up on a bunch of end of year lists. I think for as much as it felt like this was under the radar all year, all of a sudden you've got like a lot of notable metal websites, critics listing this album. So that's also been good to see, including shout out the 4 separate Matador Records employees who all listed this album. That was fun to see. That Matador Records always puts out all their employees lists on their website every year. And yeah, I saw it once and I was like, oh, no way. Then again. So yeah, they must have been playing that in the office. The album has lots of great riffs and growls and prog excursions, a little bit of doom, and some really great clean vocals from bassist Jasmine Alexander. And it's just, yeah, really cool metal album. That's all I'll say about that. Andrew?
Thanks for that, resident most metal guy. So moving to a different genre on our list, I'm going to shout out 2 albums from Aesop Rock, Black Hole Superette, and I Heard It's a Mess There Too. I think it's really cool to see Aesop Rock making records that we want to have on our list in 2025, because I mean, he was obviously like one of the leading indie underground rappers of the early 2000s, and it would be easy to picture a version of his timeline where he's just sort of faded away by now. But he's really stuck to it. He's been extremely prolific. A lot of the records he put out in the 2010s and early 2020s, I think, have gone a little unfairly overlooked. But maybe part of it is the current sort of New York underground rap scene is clearly influenced by Aesop Rock and are making that known by working with him. I mean, on this record, Arm & Hammer is on it. And, we're going to talk more about Billy Woods, but he's got one of the most acclaimed rap albums of the year. And Arm & Hammer have had one of the most acclaimed rap albums of other years. And they've got an acclaimed one this year, too. And Open Mike Eagle is on it. And Aesop Rock has been on records by some of these artists and stuff. So, like, that could be part of it. But he's just still killing it, still doing it exactly the way that he has always done it. And these records are pretty different. So it's like, that's another cool thing I think about getting 2 in 1 year is it's not like an overload, because Black Hole Superette is this like super sci-fi concept album that's just totally off in Aesop Rock's own weird universe. And then I Heard It's a Mess There Too is much more of like a down to earth kind of just straight up hard rapping over hard beats album. And especially for a guy like Aesop Rock, who kind of loves his weird tongue twisters and metaphors and turns of phrase that may not always make sense. It's kind of cool just to hear him like just rapping. So those are both very, very cool.
Yeah, it was almost overwhelming to get a second Aesop Rock album this year, as often happens with rappers. But we'll say not as overwhelming as somebody like Boldy James, but it was
How
like
many Boldy James albums came out in 2025?
I got to look that up. I'm not sure. A lot.
More than one a month.
I'm
more than 12.
There's already one scheduled for 2026. I'm pretty sure too.
Yeah,
But
there is. I mean, it's dude's gotta rest.
Yeah, but as much as I was like already prepared to say that 2025 in rap was already defined partially for me by A$AP Rock, I think I like the second album even more, and ended up spending a lot of time with that one. So
Yeah, I think the second one, instead of being like, oh man, like another one, like it almost reinforced it for me. Like
Yeah.
because it had like, I think just the concept of it being shorter, I don't think it had any guests. Like I said, kind of just rapping over beats. It felt similar to Kendrick's GNX from last fall. And like, and even Tyler, the Creator's record from this year. But like when you get these sort of artists who make these big, expansive projects and then just kind of making it smaller, it kind of has this immediacy, you know? So I think getting that and how instant it was almost reinforced like, oh, I got to go back to that like kind of harder to penetrate like sci-fi record from earlier this year too.
Definitely. All right, Amanda.
Well, I'm going to bring us back to the world of indie country, of which there has been so much goodness this year. For someone who I've been sleeping on until this year, which I'm so bummed about, but I'm so happy to not be sleeping on him anymore. It's Ryan Davis and the Roadhouse Band, New Threats from the Soul. David Berman gave Ryan a really great compliment in 2018. He called him the best lyricist who's not a rapper going. And like, if David Berman is calling you that means a lot. And I think it's a really well-deserved compliment. I'm a lyrics person, and these are some good lyrics. Like there's just like so much there. And I don't know, I could like start listing references. I'm not going to go like too deep into that, but you could if you wanted to, and that's awesome. But like beyond that, beyond like just wanting to read through all the lyrics really closely, it just sounds so good. This is an album that has just been like stuck in my head constantly, and the combination of that and the lyricism, just like that, it's witty, that's smart. I love this album, and it has gotten a lot of year-end list love, which I've been really happy to see. And I saw them at Union Pool recently, which was just like such a fun show. So yeah, really excited that I'm finally getting into them.
Awesome. I think a lot of us agree how good this album is.
Yeah.
One thing I'll add that you didn't say yet, because I just, second everything you said. I love how, in addition to being this kind of like, the songs are really long, in addition to being sometimes kind of a jammy country rock record, it also has breakbeats.
And you wouldn't think that would work. Like, that sounds weird, but it works really well. Like, it works better than it has any right to. Where I'm like, wow, this fits so well somehow.
100%.
To tie your two albums that you highlighted together, Amanda, I was thinking earlier, actually, you point out you're a lyrics person. We all know Amanda as the biggest lyrics person at Brooklyn Vegan. And I say it's even more impressive than how much you love the Rosalia album, which is in like 13 different languages.
It's true. Music in other languages can be a bit of a tough sell for me as a lyrics person, but I think the Rosalia album is just like so amazing. It transcends that for me. That I'm okay. Also, I do speak a little Spanish, so I can get that a little bit maybe.
Amanda is excellent at Duolingo. So we've got our biggest lyrics person, our resident metal guy. What's Bill's superlative?
Indie snob. I don't know, if you look at my list this year, guy who's stuck in the 90s. When I put together my list, I felt a little self-conscious about how many bands who had their heyday in the 90s that are on my list, but I think they've also genuinely made great records. And the next one that I'll talk about is the Stereolab album, Instant Holograms on Metal Film. Now, where Stereolab have been back since 2019 touring, but unlike Pulp, they haven't played any new material on tour, to give you a hint that they might have something brewing. And, you know, after like the third tour, I was like, are these guys ever going to do anything new? And it seemed like Tim Gain and Laetitia Sadier were still not getting along. When they play live, they're on opposite ends of the stage, like completely as far apart as they could possibly be, and like they never even like gave each other a glance. But then this year, like back in April, like out of nowhere, they announced that there was a new record coming, and I don't think anybody saw this one coming who wasn't like close to their camp. And it turned out to be just a fantastic record. One of their best, certainly my favorite since Dots and Loops, which was in 1997. And it really is kind of the Stereolab you remember, especially if you like that mid-90s heyday, you know, with the jazzy chords, hypnotic rhythms, xylophones, flutes, brass, interwoven vocals and harmonies, the occasional highly politicized lyrics matched with some body ba type vocal hooks, and of course, like all the analog synths you could ever want. But like the Pulp record, I think this feels really new, and they're doing something new along with it. And Laetitia Sadier said that this was the most creative input that she's had in a long time, even though she's credited as co-writer on almost all the records. And you could feel that there was like something new going on. Like they worked with Cooper Crean from Bitch and Bajas on this, and he brought something new, and the record's just really, really good. I've listened to it a whole lot. I think it's really holding up, and it's, you know, it's going to stand the test of time. And also, more importantly, maybe, I feel like making this record changed Stereolab, because when I saw them play earlier this fall, they looked like they were having fun. Like Laetitia was smiling the whole time and was just like beaming, and that had not been the case with the 3 previous tours. So this was truly like a healing record that we all can enjoy as well.
I would like to add that although Stereolab's heyday is in the 90s, I mean, this record sounds like it's from the future, as they usually do.
Right.
And I would also say, like, I'm not nearly as much of a Stereolab expert as you, and this record really, really hit me. So I think even if like you don't have a soft spot or any knowledge at all of older Stereolab, like, don't think, oh, maybe I shouldn't start here. Like, you could easily start here. It's
definitely a great place to start.
Yeah.
If you're, for the uninformed. And it's definitely, you look at, if you go to like their Discogs or on Wiki or whatever, it's formidable. So like not only albums, but EPs and all this other stuff, you really don't know where to start. This is a great place to start.
Where would you go next?
Personally, I would go to either Dots and Loops or Emperor Tomato Ketchup, or there are these, I'm blanking on the names of these compilations that they've done, that have all their sort of B-sides and non-LP stuff. And that's a great place to start too. And again, I can't remember the name of those, but
yeah, I'm sure people will find them.
It's a very daunting thing, but yeah, start.
It's a good time to deep dive on Stereolab.
For sure.
Definitely.
New Year's resolution. All right. Metal Guy is back. So this year, I don't want to give any spoilers yet. We're going to get into the top 10 soon, but black metal really dominates our list. And we talked about this on a previous episode of BV Weekly about how it's just felt like a really good year for black metal. And we didn't even mention this album at the time because I don't know when we recorded.
It came out the day the episode went live.
Oh yeah. So I hadn't even heard it yet. And This is the band Yellow Eyes with their new album Confusion Gate. I guess that day was Halloween because that's the day this
Yep.
album came out.
Also, the same day, I'll just add real quick, One of Nine's album came out.
Oh yeah,
So
another
that
good-
ended up being a really good day for black metal, and maybe we should have done that episode the following week. Something.
yeah. But Yellow Eyes are a long-running New York City black metal band, and maybe not a huge band, but certainly well-loved, critically acclaimed in the past band. And this was actually their first fully black metal album since 2019. In 2023, they released a more ambient like album that explored dungeon synth and other genres. And on this new album of black metal, they actually reworked some of those dungeon synthy sounds from that album into songs on this one, which is full of they're really known for their kind of magical, crazy guitar playing. I'm not a guitar player, so it's hard for me to put into words what they do, but it's just kind of creating magic that seeps into your soul as the best albums do. And so they put like those kind of albums from the sounds from the 2023 album, they kind of reworked some of them into this new album, which kind of makes it even more rewarding for fans of that album as well. And the whole thing is just so masterfully crafted with an amazing attention to detail. So anyway, yeah, Yellow Eyes for me, like in a year when we already have a lot of black metal favorites, this quickly shot to the top.
All right.
Top 10 time?
Yes.
All right. So, first of all, if you're wondering where those 8 albums that we just went through, did I do that math right? Rank, go check out the list of 55. They're all on there. But now we're going to count down, starting with number 10.
So I'm going to talk a little about number 10. I wouldn't call myself a metal fan. I do appreciate metal. I do like some metal, but metal can be a tough sell for me. But Andrew actually really recommended this album to me, and I'm so glad he did. It's Agriculture's The Spiritual Sound, and it is one of the most intense listens I've had this year. It's so incredible. It's so powerful. And it's not all metal either. Like there's some metal, but there's also just like things that are more like folk or more like post rock. And there's also screamo vibes, which is definitely like kind of how I like my metal to be with a little screamo. And beyond that, beyond the sound, which again is just so incredible. It's also, there's themes about queer history and life as a transgender person and Zen Buddhism. It's a really incredible album. And even though it maybe wasn't something that I immediately gravitated towards as like, oh, this is an album I'm gonna like. Like once I did listen to it, I was like, holy shit, this album is so sick.
Yeah, this album just hits so hard. And like, I mean, to your point, like honestly, as much as they're a great black metal band, some of my favorite moments are when they're not being metal at all. Like when Dan Meyer does the clean vocals and acoustic guitar and Hallelujah. Like I could just listen to that song 10 times in a row. I love when they do that kind of stuff. But I think it hits especially hard when it comes in between these heavy moments. It's like
having the juxtaposition makes both just really stand out.
Yeah, like I think I texted my brother about this, and I was just like, I was trying to like sell it to him in like a few words. So I was like, it's like Deaf Heaven meets Songs Ohio. And I really feel that it could, like, even for the screaming averse music fans, I think there's like just enough to latch onto. And then for people who do love screaming, one of the best records with screaming of the year.
I will say I'm not a person who likes screaming, and this may come up later on or frequently in our top 10 list, but there's definitely moments on this record which are really cool. And it's like, oh, I'm really into this, and like almost like sort of indie rock moments. And then it goes back into other stuff that I'm not as interested in, but as a whole, like it's a cool record.
Yeah, I think it's a record that like everyone should check out, that it has something for everyone, even if you don't necessarily think that a metal record is going to be for you.
And none of them said that during Yellow Eyes. One earlier, but I will, I don't know. I think everyone should check out every album on this list. But no, yes, of course. I agree with that point as well. Okay, that was our number 10. And now on to number 9. It's an artist who was already mentioned in this episode so far because he also appears on another album we talked about. And that is Billy Woods of Arm & Hammer, who also put out an album which we also love. And so Billy Woods, Andrew, why don't you take it?
Yeah, his album is called Gollywog. And basically, I always say that my favorite Billy Woods album is the newest Billy Woods album. He's just one of those artists that I want to listen to his latest thing. And then usually within a year, you get another thing. And then that's the one I want to put on. But even with that being said, I think this is his best record in a while. Like, I think this is one of the best Billy Woods solo records. It's just like, the thing about Billy Woods is like, I would say he's not very much of an instant satisfaction kind of rapper. I mean, you don't really get like sing-along hooks. You don't really like, it's not songs you dance to. And the more you listen to it, the more it just kind of creeps up on you, as he's kind of one of those artists. And this one, I couldn't stop wanting to put it on, and it just wouldn't stop creeping up on me. It has so many great one-liners. It's like, the album is sort of like a loose concept album. And it's just like, he'll be telling you about a nightmare he had on one song, and then he'll be talking about everyday real life on the next. And it's like, sometimes you might be surprised which of those are scarier, I guess. And then the production matches. It's just so haunting. It's a lot of good producers on there, and it just like really sets the sort of ominous tone for these songs that they take these pretty dark turns.
It's not even the most recent Billy Woods album technically, because since releasing Gollywog, he also came out with slightly different spelling, G-O-W.
It's like sort of a remix album of Gollywog.
Remix album of Gollywog. Yeah, it's got the same track list. I actually haven't heard it yet, but I don't know. Anyway, that's just an aside. Watch out. Make sure you're playing Gollywog, not Go.
And there's the Arm & Hammer album, Arm & Hammer and the Alchemist, Mercy. So yeah. I mean, there's every year has at least one Arm & Hammer related record. So it's a lot to keep up with, but this is one of the best, I think.
Definitely. I feel the same way about this one. Just another amazing album from Billy Woods. How does he keep doing it?
Seriously.
All right, on to number 8 then, with an album that we've never talked about before, which Andrew doesn't even like that much, but somehow still made number 8 on our list, and that is Turnstile. Andrew, you did listen to it though?
I don't even have a clever comeback. Yeah, I mean, listeners of this podcast, regular listeners, were probably tired of hearing me talk about Turnstile's new album, but I think the onus is still on me for this one. But I hope that anyone who wants to pipe in can. But yeah, I mean, you know, Glow On, Turnstile's last record, was our number 1 album of 2021. The anticipation was extremely high for this one. The band is just like the first sort of punk band, I think, to really get like kind of big, like big in a really long time. So that just means the anticipation is even higher, I think, just because the sheer amount of fans that were waiting for this compared to pretty much like any band Turnstile would tour with. And I just think it delivered. It was, you know, like they're just such a unique band. No one's really doing it like Turnstile. And I think this record, which was self-produced, they kind of let themselves get a little weirder than they did on Glow On. As much as Glow On is an amazing record, I think it was a little more streamlined for them, which is, that's cool. And it makes sense that it kind of popped off the way it did. But I think they kind of let themselves stretch out. And like this record has a 7-minute song that's half mosh riffs and half club beats. And they have this one song with like reggaeton beats and Latin horns. And it's just kind of all over the place. Honestly, one of my favorite songs is the last song, which is like an ambient pop song. I think it has maybe no percussion at all, and it's called Magic Man, and it sounds just as much like Turnstile as the fast-paced Bad Brainsy songs. So yeah, I just think like, Turnstile did it again. They're one of the best bands going. They made a record that sounds like nothing else. It doesn't sound like anything in their catalog or any other band. And the minute I'm actually upset because they played Brooklyn. We've talked about this on the show before, but they played this big outdoor show under the K Bridge in Brooklyn the night before the album came out. And they have not been in New York since it's been out. So they actually only played like a few new songs of that show. The proper Never Enough tour has not hit New York. So I haven't really seen them play most of these songs. I was thinking about going to Boston or Philly, but it didn't happen. But the minute they opened with the title track, it was like a sea of just 10,000 people all singing along to the newest Turnstile. And it just felt like, okay, we're here. We're in the band's new era. It was a great feeling. I got goosebumps, and here we are.
You got me thinking, I think everybody wants to weigh in on this one. So Amanda, go ahead.
I agree about that being a goosebump inducing moment. I was also at that show, and I would also love to see them do some more new songs. I think this album is so fantastic. It's not Glow On Part 2, and yeah, it's great. I just second pretty much everything Andrew said.
I would say I'm the least Turnstile pilled of the staff here. Part of that may be because I haven't seen them live yet. I was out of town when that big Under the K Bridge show happened, and that may have done it for me. But I do like the record. It's just not like something that I actively listen to, but they're doing things on this one that are definitely in my world. Andrew, what's the song that sounds like a Captured Track song?
Yeah, it's I Care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like this is a deep pull, but like this band Craft Spells, who were around in the late 2000s and early 2010s. It basically just sounds like kind of something like that. And I love the way the record sounds, and I'm sure that I would probably be converted once I see them live, and I'm vowing to do that next year.
I mean, in the words of Turnstile, you got to see it live to get it.
And Bill, also a big Dev Hynes fan and expert, another one of the collaborators. I'm not sure if it was on that song you mentioned, but
not that one.
Yeah, Dev Hynes also on this record. So
I was going to say too, though, that when they played Knockdown Center on the last record, Beach Fossils opened. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were Craft Spells fans.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was thinking when you said no band sounds like Turnstile, I think that is also partially because I think Turnstile's popularity has caused some bands to try to sound like Turnstile. So Turnstile may sound like no one, but some bands are trying to sound like Turnstile, but no one can really do it.
Yeah.
So I think, and for me, it's a huge turnoff when I turn on a record and I'm like, oh, they're trying to sound like Turnstile. It's like almost always a big negative immediately. And I'm not going to name names. Sometimes I hear it even for just a minute on an album. Sometimes I hear it for a whole album. But yeah, it's like only Turnstile can sound like Turnstile in a good way.
And I think, and this is the last thing I'll say, because I guess I talk too much about this album, but I think what this album really doubled down on was, as all these bands are sort of emerging that are kind of doing things Turnstile have done, they're like, okay, well, now try this, who's going to pull off the mosh riffs into club beat song on their next record?
Right. We'll keep going. And I think much like Amanda started talking about agriculture, thought we'd bring a little new perspective to our number 10, 9, 8, 7, which is the Greg Freeman album, which Bill also likes. So we've talked at length about this album, partially under the whole indie country thing on previous episodes and on the site, but Bill has not yet weighed in really. So Greg Freeman, let's go.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in West Virginia, in the hometown of the West Virginia State Fair, where I saw lots of classic country growing up. And that sort of did it for me for a long time. You know, I discovered like New Order and Echo and the Bunnymen and stuff like that in the 80s and moved away from country. And so the indie country boom of this year, as it's been dubbed, didn't really hit me the way it hit like Andrew and maybe other people here. But Andrew kept telling me I should check out this Greg Freeman record, and I'm really glad that I did. It, you know, it, as mentioned about Ryan Davis with, you know, comparisons to Silver Jews, I think it's very easy and obvious to make comparisons to Silver Jews with this album, and Pavement for that matter. And it also reminds me a little bit of this Toronto band Kiwi Jr., who get compared to Pavement a lot as well. But it's really hard to pin down what he does. There's a lot of different sounds on this record, and he's got a lot of great quotes, you know, so many quotable lines from his songs, but also just musically, it doesn't exactly sound like Pavement or the Silver Jews. There's lots of different things going on here. And I sort of feel like he's a guy at a vintage shop that pulls out all these different clothes and puts them all on at the same time. And he's somehow makes it all work. Like nobody else would look good in this outfit, but Greg Freeman somehow, like all these different elements that you wouldn't think would work together, it totally works with him.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I would add to like it's like, you know, it's easy to get caught up in sort of the Stephen Malkmus and Jason Molina of it all. Although I would say he sounds less like Jason Molina on this record than on his debut. But it's like one of the coolest moments is that song Gulch, which is like this bar rock song that I think I compared to the Replacements in my review. And the last track, Wolf Pine, which is like this 9-minute kind of experimental Americana thing. Like it kind of reminds me of like what Wilco was doing on like A Ghost Is Born and stuff, like these sort of like post-rock Americana things. And he just, like you said, it just makes it all sound like Greg Freeman.
That last track is my favorite. I love it. It's the Wilco comparison is spot on. And like Bill, while I grew up in New Jersey, I also grew up with a family that listened to a lot of classic country and folk, but I've sort of been embracing that again. And I also really just love this album in general. I think it's so satisfying. The sounds, the textures, it's such a good listen. I was able to see them live this summer, opening for This Is Lorelei at Knockdown Center. And that was also fantastic. They were just they were so on as a live band. So that was really fun.
It's a rare album that the four of us all agree on. So
very rare. Extremely rare.
So we have that. Definitely Greg Freeman. Check it out. Let's go to number 6. Amanda, you want to take it? It's CMAT.
Sure, I'd love to. This is one of my very favorite albums of the year. I think that no one is doing it quite like CMAT. She is just making this a little pop, a little country, amazing lyrics, like so funny, so heartfelt. She's just entirely herself and just amazing. Like I am constantly recommending this album to people because I just love her. And yeah.
A little country, a little Euro country even, right?
a little Euro country.
We keep forgetting to say the album names, but yes, this one is called Euro Country. And
I think Bill also likes this one.
I do. And this would, if you'd asked me like a year ago, would a record that sounds like this be on my end of year list? And it's very high on my personal end of year list.
Same.
And but there's just something so charming about what she does. I feel like every song on this album could be a single. It has as many hooks as quotable lines. It's funny, it's moving, it's distinctly Irish. It's kind of got it all. And as I'm saying this now, I'm like, is it high enough up on my list? Is this actually my number one? It's not my number one, but I think about it.
It did make number one on some lists.
It's my number 2 on my personal list, which maybe, who knows, it could move up. It's possible.
And I will say that Dave, Amanda, and I all saw her show at Webster Hall earlier this year, and the crowd, I hadn't seen a crowd reaction like that to an artist in I don't know how long. It was kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, really good live show, really fun.
Such a fun show.
Campiness, a little Broadway in there, as CMAT herself at the show referenced. She was excited to be in New York City near Broadway. I think we did this whole review on another episode. But yeah, so
that's officially the second time you've sung Broadway.
Yep. People were asking for an encore, so that's what it was.
I saw that. I saw those encore requests.
Yep.
It was the kind of crowd where it had been a long time where the music that was just playing before the show, the audience like mass sing-alongs to multiple songs, and I was like, what is going on at this show? And then when she came out, like, people just went nuts.
She's coming back, by the way. We saw her at Webster Hall. I think it's at least in New York. She's got Brooklyn Paramount coming up.
Oh, is it Brooklyn Paramount?
It's Brooklyn Paramount. Yeah, she's actually supporting Florence and the Machine on much of Florence's tour, which is an amazing pairing. But New York, she has a headlining show. So definitely check that out.
We were all after that show wondering what the next show would be, and could it be somewhere like absolutely huge?
Right. I guess Brooklyn, I mean, it is a bigger venue, but also, like you said, she's on a bigger tour. So sometimes you don't go for the biggest venue while that's happening.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely getting a lot of year-end love all over the place, for sure. Should we keep going?
Yeah.
We are. What number are we at? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Number 5, we have Deftones, Private Music. Andrew, what do you have to say about that one?
Well, actually, Amanda, this is really high on your list, and you were not really that much of a Deftones fan, right? Leading up to this?
I appreciated Deftones. I wouldn't have called myself a fan, but I listened to this album immediately, just loved it. I was getting Smashing Pumpkins vibes. I just think it's incredible. Deftones are really an incredible story, how they've become so big with Gen Z, and this album, comes and just like totally is great. This is not like an album where you're like, oh, it's, I'm going to listen to it because it's Deftones, this band that I liked for a long time, but this new album maybe isn't going to live up to their older material. Like, no, this really lives up to their older material. This is just like a great album.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about in the context of we've talking about these 90s bands with new albums. I mean, Bill, what would people have said in 1995, 1997 if somebody said, Deftones are going to be way more of a thing in 2025 than like, I mean, Built to Spill or like anything, I don't know, like Soundgarden, like.
Well, I think, for people who like Built to Spill, probably very dismissive. I don't think nu metal got much traction at all or any, actual appreciation from anybody who considered themselves, a indie rock music fan or whatever, which I definitely fell into, and I definitely paid no attention to them at all in the 90s and 2000s. And then I think we did in 2020, we did a look back at the Cocteau Twins Heaven or Las Vegas album, and it came up like how big of fans they were. And I think that's when they first came on my radar. I can't say that I'm still a huge Deftones fan, but I have listened to this record and there's a lot of cool stuff on it. I'm not crazy about the vocals at all times. As I said, I would be mentioning that a couple times. But cool record.
I mean, it's definitely interesting to see how like the younger generations will talk about them in the same sentence as My Bloody Valentine, and it's just normal.
Right. Well, that's also, people who were born maybe in the mid 90s, they've come up with Spotify where everything's just all in one place. You know, you're getting you have access to everything, so there's no delineation. There's not that us versus them thing that there definitely was for most people who are Gen X, you know.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, it is interesting. Like Amanda, you said, like their story is fascinating. And even just on top of all of that, even if you strip away all context, just how amazing this record is. Like I couldn't stop listening to it all year. Um, it, it's kind of like what we said about Stereo Lab, where like you could this could be your first Deftones record. Like it sounds like one of the best albums of 2025 in the context of whatever that means, you know, like whatever you're looking for now, like this fit in with just like kind of the moment, I guess, and just some of the best rock songs that I heard all year. I love Deftones leaning into the sort of atmospheric side, like, you know, probably the reason, like when they come up in the context of My Bloody Valentine or them being influenced by Cocteau Twins, like, you know, they definitely seem to be leaning a little more towards that and away from the days where they would be on tour with Korn or something. But you know, it does have those heavy moments too. It's got those like badass head banging riffs. So it kind of feels like it's got a little something for every type of Deftones fan. And I like that about it.
I would say of records that have the syllable def on our list, I like this the most.
Ooh, hot take. And some foreshadowing.
Yes. Heavy foreshadowing.
Let's go on to the next one. We're not there yet, though. Number 4. I'm sure you're wondering if this one will appear. And here it is at number 4. Wednesday's album, Bleeds. A band we've talked much about and who, as we hope, put out a really great album this year that we love. What else can we say, Andrew?
One thing that really stands out to me about this album is their last album, Rat Saw God, felt like this massive breakthrough for them. It was like kind of the record that they were like working towards their whole career kind of thing. Like, you know, like we had liked the earlier Wednesday stuff, but that record just blew up on a different level. And it was like, okay, like, you know, they're just the band that they seemed like they had the potential to be the whole time. It's the kind of record that would be hard to follow for a lot of bands. So I think it's just so interesting that this one blows it away. Like, I'm like, now this is the new best Wednesday album. It's not close. I'm already excited to hear what the next Wednesday album is. I know there was some talk that they might want to do more of the screamy stuff that appeared on one track on this record. Very exciting. But yeah, I just think this has the full sort of like span of everything Wednesday is capable of, from that 86-second screamo song up to this gorgeously gentle country rock song, Elderberry Wine. That was my favorite song of the year, and all kinds of stuff in between where they just combine elements of shoegaze and grunge and alt country into something that just sounds like Wednesday. I mean, it's like, you know, they have songs that sound like Jay Mascis and Kevin Shields jamming with Drive-By Truckers, and it's awesome. And these are just, every song on this album, like Bill said this about CMAP, but I think almost every song could have been the single. And the ones that were the singles were all fantastic and not at all, they didn't overshadow the deeper cuts. Like it's so good. I think that Carly Hartzman is one of her generation's great songwriters, and this is her best work so far.
Yeah, I agree. And Carly called Bleeds the quintessential Wednesday Creek rock album. And I think that is a really good description of it. I think it really just like finds the sweet spot between all of the different sounds that Wednesday have incorporated into their music and just kind of gives them all a little time. And it's a monster.
I'm going to chime in here and cheat and add in another sort of deeper cut from our own list here. If you love the Wednesday record and you've kind of worn it out already, and you also like the Beth's new album, Straight Line Was a Lie, you should really check out this Australian band called the Bel Air Lip Bombs, who released their second album again on Third Man Records. And it really sort of, to me, is the sort of Venn diagram middle point between the Wednesday album and the Best album. So something else to listen to.
I will say, as the other Bel Air Lip Balms fan on this podcast, I do actually love that album too. Really catchy, really fun album. Like Bill said, it's also on our list of 55. I don't hear the Wednesday personally. But I appreciate where you're coming from with that, for sure.
So I think we kind of talked about this on another episode, but there seem to be these two big winners for indie rock this year, Wednesday being one, and the next is our number 3.
That's right. If you haven't guessed it already, it is, in fact, Geese at number 3 with Getting Killed. Bonus points for that Cameron Winter album that came out in late 2024. That's also showing up on lots of 2025 lists. The combined power of these two albums this past year has just, really, I don't know how anyone could argue with Geese really being the band of the year in 2025. And they've just really defined it. And I know that, they've got a lot of, thanks to all the attention, they've also got a lot of loud haters. All you have to do is read the comments of any Geese Instagram post we post to know. But, they've also got a lot of loud lovers, and even people that can sometimes be big haters are really, can't deny Geese. So Geese, Getting Killed.
Yeah, this was really both one of my favorite albums of the year, and just my favorite story of the year. Just the way that they blew up, which has been talked about on this podcast, was I feel like I haven't seen a rise quite like that in the indie rock space in a while, and it was so exciting to see and to kind of feel somewhat a part of. And I think that this album just really arrived at a very good time for it to be well received. I think it really speaks to the present moment. I think the lyrics, which can be surreal and can be a little paranoid and can feel apocalyptic, I think they speak so well to our present time that it was just really easy to embrace them. And the music works so well with the lyrics too. I think the production from Kenneth Bloom just really adds so much to this album. And I also think that Cameron Winter's solo album is definitely part of the story and kind of set Geese up to have this major breakthrough with Getting Killed. Because certainly for me, I wasn't really expecting to love this album the way I do, but I was someone who got into heavy metal late. I was late, but...
And you mean the Cameron Winter album title?
Yeah.
Not the Agriculture album.
Once I did get into Cameron's solo album, I was like, all right, let's bring on this Geese record. And yeah, the rest is, kind of history with Geese getting accolades from Nick Cave and Patti Smith and just, it was
one legend after the other. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the story too, is something you implied, which is how much we didn't care about Geese that much before this year. And being the big people that we are, we never let yesterday be held against you. And but just like, that to me, that's just part of the magic of this, that we all became so Geese-pilled this year after previously showing minimal interest. So yeah, it's like, it just felt exciting.
I mean, I think some of the music that you love the most, you hated first.
True.
I agree very strongly with that.
Which is why, if Cameron's voice isn't for you, keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling everyone, because the first time I heard heavy metal, I was like, I don't think this is for me. But as I did return to it, I made a connection in my head with Cameron and with the album and with Neutral Milk Hotel. and that's sort of like an album with like a mythology behind it, and also a vocalist with like an unusual voice. And having made that connection, it all just sort of clicked for me, and then I loved it. And I think it also recalls Rufus Wainwright a little, the solo album. But I think my Neutral Milk Hotel comparison might be a little left field. I don't know if I've heard that one used around so much, so take that with a grain of salt.
No, I
But
mean, I hated Jeff Mangum's voice the first time I heard it, which is crazy to think now because I love his voice. So yeah, I think it's a spot on.
I'm definitely the person who Cameron's voice is a deal breaker for me still, but there's no denying the natural rise of Geese. It never felt like it was being foisted upon us by publicists or, you know, or Pitchfork or anything like that. You know, all of us, you know, when we saw the footage of that show that was like a free show in Brooklyn, where who knows how many people were there, 10,000 people, maybe something like that. It was just like, whoa, this is a thing and it's natural. And it's so great to see that sort of thing can still happen, especially in New York.
I'm just going to add a little cynicism here. I think Geese was hoisted upon us by publicists
At the very start,
when they first came out. And I
but
think,
not now.
yes,
right, I think it's fascinating how like the people have spoken. And like, and
That
I think
many
one of the
years later.
things, sorry, Dave.
That many years later.
Exactly. Right.
Key-
Like
key part of your point. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like it was like, that's, I think we've talked about this before too, where like you can't really accuse them of being a buzz band. Like they're already past the buzz era. They're a real band with a real catalog and a lot of depth.
Yeah, I remember last year when I went to go see King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard at Forest Hill Stadium, and Geese opened a couple shows of that, and I walked in and there were so many people there that were clearly there to see Geese, you know, and it felt like King Gizzard was like a bonus, or they loved both. And that was really the first time I was like, oh, all right, I need to give these guys another shot. And I'm still not there yet, but again, maybe I just need to see them live in their current incarnation.
Good segue, because actually seeing them live, like Amanda and I did recently, also just really brought it over the top, because the live show right now was one of my favorite live shows of the year. And I'll relate this back to Wednesday too. I got to see Geese and Wednesday this year. I also got to see Carly solo previewing a few songs from the Wednesday album even before it came out. And just, you know, those three shows were all so great, and also just the bands really deliver, not live and on album, you know. So, with Wednesday too, with both of them, just the power in the vocals, the screamy moments, it's just, yeah, it kills you.
I really like that the screamy song on Geese, track 1, which is also cool because a lot of people I've heard say that they needed to get past track 1 on Geese, and the record kind of hit them later, which you know, I mean, I like that song a lot, but I think it's really cool to open with like one of the more alienating ones, and then every time I've seen video of them playing that song, there's like a little mosh pit breaking out, and it just feels cool because they're like the kind of band I could easily see never having that happen. So there's definitely like, you know, again, they have a lot of range, and I think that's really, really impressive.
All right, should we get to number 2?
Let's do it.
I think a lot of times, many times a record feels bigger than the music on it, which is not necessarily a positive, but sometimes that can be a positive that gives it an extra special push, which I think helped put this record so high on our list. I am talking about the long-awaited, would you call it a reunion album from Clips, which has just felt like not just an album that completely delivered as we hoped it would by somebody a group we long loved, but which has felt like it had such an impact this year. And I just think Let God Sort 'Em Out deserves its spot at number 2 on our list.
Yeah, I mean, Amanda said this. I think you said it, Dave. Like, it's just been a hard year to pick a number 1, and this feels like a number 1 contender. as did Geese, as did a handful of these other records. Wednesday, like I feel like the top 5 could be tied for number 1 maybe. But this might be. I've been thinking about this. I'm like, am I going to stick by this take? I think this could be the best rap reunion record since the A Tribe Called Quest one. It is just like, especially I think when it comes to like these reunion records or these sequel kind of records, it can feel like sort of trying too hard to kind of get yourself back in the conversation by revisiting the thing that people love most about you. And it might have, it's like, it can it feel exciting at first and then just kind of start to fade and be like, you know what, I'd rather listen to the old records. And just the story of this album, how good the songs are, like it just feels like it feels like one of the biggest forces in hip hop this whole year. Like I can't say what I said about Deftones or Stereolab where like you could take it out of context, because you can't. The album itself is the context. Like it is on the album. So it's Pusha T and his brother Malice, and Pusha T obviously went on to be one of the sort of most prolific and consistently great rappers as a solo artist of the last 15 years, where Malice kind of like found Christianity. He did some Christian rap records and then kind of just didn't do music at all for a while. So this is not just a reunion of Pusha T and Malice, but it's Malice's return to rap. And he raps on the record about this being his return to rap. He kind of talks about leaving rap, what brought him back in. The whole real story of the album's existence is there. So you can't separate it from that. But it is just this completely new, important chapter that is just as important as Classic Clips. It has moments that remind you of Classic Clips, and it has moments that could only have happened now. The fact that 2 of the best verses on the record come from Kendrick Lamar and Tyler the Creator, who were like 2 of the biggest and best and most loved rappers to have come out since Clips broke up, just speaks so much to Clips' influence, and just that those guys would deliver the way they did for this, like just kind of speaks to how much they admire Clips and they understood the assignment. They knew they couldn't be on a Clips record with an okay verse. I mean, Tyler especially, who Kendrick, kind of cares a lot about like that sort of thing, whereas Tyler is more content to have records where he primarily sings. And this is just one of Tyler's best rapping verses probably in his entire catalog. And it's just even with all this stuff aside, even though, like I said, it's kind of hard to put it all aside, the songs are just so good. Like this album is another one where it's a little, I will say, if I had to be a little critical, it's a little front loaded, but the first like 60 to 70% of the record, all singles, all hits. Like it's just I couldn't get enough of this album all year. It really felt like it dominated culture in the way that Clips did 15, 20 years ago. And I've spoken to people who, like didn't know Clips back then, and they agree that this record was just a dominant part of culture this year. It just really felt like so much of this year in hip hop was this record, even though these are guys that were making records when most of today's rappers were learning how to use a spoon. So yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's been said before, but like Pusha T is kind of the Wes Anderson of coke rap. He's got this one thing that he does, and he keeps doing it with every new record, and he's extremely good at it. But here it's great to hear, it get mixed up with what Malice does, and it sort of makes it all fresh again, even if all of his records are pretty great.
Dun, dun, dun. We are at number 1. Our number
what
one.
What could it be?
Our number 1 album of 2025 is Def Heaven with Lonely People with Power. Like I said, this is a big year for black metal on our list. We talked about Yellow Eyes. We talked about Agriculture. Go check our full list. There might even be more. And it's just but Def Heaven also, maybe even more than Agriculture, transcend metal, I think, transcend they at least even more than Agriculture, because they've been doing it for a much longer time. It's been actually 12 years since Def Heaven made waves in the metal world with their masterpiece Sunbather, which was widely critically acclaimed outside metal everywhere. And it's been great for us at Brooklyn Vegan because we've also been big fans of Deaf Heaven since even before that album, since day one. Even early on, they played many Brooklyn Vegan shows. Now they're this giant band, one of the biggest black metal bands in the world for sure, or at least one of the biggest that crosses outside of the metal world. And this past year, they did a tour with Knocked Loose. They also do tours with like metal bands like Gatecreeper, and you know, I'm sure they've played Pitchfork Festival. Like I
mean, Paul Banks from Interpol is on this record.
There you go. So, and I think, you know, I wasn't a big fan of their last album, which was a few years ago, which was, they stopped being metal for the most part on that album. It was like a shoegaze and dream pop thing. And much like I was saying with Yellow Eyes, who did a different kind of album a few years earlier, they then took what they did on that record, and maybe not as specifically the same reworked things like Yellow Eyes did, but they took that sound, that shoegaze sound, and like brought that all to this record while doing what I think they do best, which is black metal. And they just made, to me, the most powerful record of the year. One that from the first note of the first song really feels like it's meeting this very shitty moment we are in this world. And that power is, to me, what I think helps define it as like the record of the year, basically, and which helped bring it up to our number one.
Yeah, it's I think, to piggyback on what you said about, you know, Deaf Heaven doing what they do best, and like, I think though, what I also like about it is it just feels like sort of Deaf Heaven doing everything they're capable of. Like there are hints of that shoegazier record, Infinite Granite, on this album. It's not like they have sort of been like, okay, like we're not doing that anymore. It's more like they've just sucked it back in. And it has, I think, the heaviest Deaf Heaven song since New Bermuda, which was previously their heaviest album. Now this one might be. And it has those really pretty post-rock shoegaze black metal fusions that made Sunbather so loved when it came out. And it has sort of the ambition of Ordinary Corrupt Human Love. It just feels like what I said in my review of it was, you know, Sunbather may always be the classic. You know, some bands don't escape that. But I think right now, at least, this is the ultimate Deaf Heaven album. And Sunbather doesn't really show the full scope of this band anymore. They've done too many different things since. This album has the full scope of this band. And I really look forward to finding out what the next thing they do is.
Definitely. They said they're writing new music already. I'm not ready for that to happen in 2026. I want to live with this album a little longer. I would like to go see them live again in 2026. But I also saw them live in 2025. So actually, that's a big theme of a lot of our top records, is just some of my favorite shows match some of my favorite records this year. A lot of my favorite records this year: Deaf Heaven, Wednesday, Geese, CMAT, and so on. So, Amanda, you're also a Deaf Heaven fan, are you not?
Yeah, I also saw them live this year. Did we? I don't think we actually went to the same show, but maybe we went to different nights.
I think Dave and I were at the Warsaw show.
Yeah, and I went to Irving Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also one of my favorite shows of the year, and this is also one of my favorite albums of the year. And again, it's like Agriculture. It's a black metal album that even non-metalheads can find a lot to love in, and it's so beautiful and powerful, and yeah, I love it. And just like the show, which is super intense and so dramatic, the album appeals similarly. And yeah, they're just fantastic.
All right. So mine is Adult Mom's album, Natural Causes. I mean, you know, it's clearly been a very good year for indie rock, especially sort of kind of folky indie rock, like kind of just like earthy, those sort of vibes. And I think this one is right up there in that. Like, I think it really goes well with Wednesday and Geese and Greg Freeman and a lot of the other stuff that is on our top 55. I think it's Adult Mom's best yet. I think their best songwriting. It just feels like the songs just like go to the next level. They hit so hard. It reminds me, the comparison I come back to the most is it reminds me of Waxahachie's more kind of indie rock era, like Cerulean Salt era Waxahachie, which I guess we also kind of got a taste of this year on the Snowcaps album, which might be on the top 55. And yeah, I just think like, I love this kind of sound, and I think Adult Mom did it really, really well, better than a lot of other people have in a while, and I think it's really worth a listen.
Amanda.
My honorable mention is Caroline's Caroline 2, a really, really gorgeous album that is kind of part post-rock, part avant-folk, just one of those large collectives making very intricate, detailed music of a sort that sort of feels like it's gone out of fashion in some ways, but also I think the way that Caroline are doing it is not, I mean, it's not cheesy in the slightest, and it's really, it just feels like powerful and moving and maybe a little jammy sometimes. Yeah, I just think this is an album that you can really get lost in. And actually, a famous Caroline Polachek appears on it, which is a major highlight.
All right, Bill.
As I said before, there's a lot of bands from the 90s who have made records this year that have been some of my favorites. And I'm going to cheat here a little and do two at once. The first of which is Saint Etienne's International. Unlike bands like Pulp and Stereolab, who are kind of like getting back together, Saint Etienne announced that they're going to break up or cease operations. They're all still really great friends, Bob Stanley, Pete Wiggs, and Sarah Cracknell. So they wanted to go out with a bang, and they really did. They got lots of cool collaborators this time. Orbital are on this record, the Chemical Brothers, Confidence Man, Vince Clarke of Depeche Mode and Erasure. And all of these collaborators really understood the assignment. And they've just made one of their best records, I feel like, with this final record. And two of the songs on the album, Glad, which is a collaboration with both Chemical Brothers and Doves, and this song Brand New Me, which is with Confidence Man, are two of their all-time best singles. It's definitely their best album since Words and Music, which was my #1 album of 2012. I'm a huge Saint Etienne fan, but genuinely, this record is fantastic. And the other one is Suede's Antidepressants. And of course, Suede over here are known as the London Suede officially, but I don't know a single person who likes Suede that calls them the London Suede. They broke up in like 2002 and then got back together in 2010. And this is actually their fourth album since reforming. Much like their 2022 album, Autofiction, this falls into like what you'd call post-punk, but I'd say more specifically, they've just gone 80s goth rock. Think early Cult or Sisters of Mercy or stuff like that. And it really works amazingly with Suede's sort of signature like glam sound. This is an unbelievably strong record, especially for a band that got their start in 1992. You should really check this record out. Suede's Antidepressants. It's great.
All right, I'll end it with my honorable mention. She may be a giant celebrity with 50 million monthly Spotify listeners and plenty of hits, but I am going to say that in a year full of Addison Rae list placements, Miley Cyrus, and especially her new album, Something Beautiful, feels very underrated. Like Olivia Rodrigo, Miley is a pop star that's also a rock star. And like Olivia and Haley, Miley also teamed up with David Byrne this year. He appears on a bonus track on the deluxe version of this album. like the Lady Gaga album, which, by the way, is also on our list of 55, there are moments that remind me of Madonna on this, including the very Vogue-esque spoken word moment from Naomi Campbell, who, fun fact, actually appears on 2 great albums this year. Naomi Campbell's also on the Amore album. Like CMAT, this, to me, is one of the year's best pop rock albums. I group Miley in with that as well. Both make me think of Fleetwood Mac at times. And Miley actually got both Lindsey Buckingham and Mick Fleetwood on another one of those bonus tracks that's only on the deluxe version. Unlike CMAT, actually, I should have fact-checked this, Miley brought a ton of recognizable names from our world to work on this one, including Adam from The War on Drugs. And the album was also produced primarily by Sean Everett, who has, helped make War on Drugs and Killers make very big, to quote Andrew, classic rock-esque albums. And Nick Zinner of the AES is on this album. Brittany Howard of Alabama Shakes sings on a track. There was co-writing from Always. That's with Always with 2 V's in their name. There was co-writing from Bon Iver and Low collaborator BJ Burton, and Foxygen's Jonathan, how do you say it? Radu, and even model actresses Cole Hayden had some part in this album as well. And Flea plays bass on a song, and Flea and Tom York's Adams for Peace bandmate Joey Waronker, however you say his name, plays drums on a few songs. So yeah, there's just a million reasons this album fits in our world, and also I just really love it. So there you go.
Cool.
Awesome.
This episode has been going on forever, so we're not going to do our usual like new albums. Are there new albums this week? And
it might be, but yeah,
the year's over. But yeah, and we are not really. We don't really have many news items, but we did just want to highlight one news item before we go. Something we're feeling sad about, and it was just announced that Brooklyn music venue, Music Hall of Williamsburg, which has been around since 2007. Did I get that right?
That's right.
Will be closing soon due to losing its lease. This is a venue that was opened by New York City promoters Bowery Presents, which I don't know if they were already part of AEG when it opened, but they became part of AEG, so it's part of that. But before that, it was the venue North 6, which looked very different.
Very different.
But so North 6 closed. Bowery Presents took over the space, remodeled it as Music Hall of Williamsburg. And now for 2007, that's 15, 16, 17, 18 years. That venue has hosted a multitude of amazing shows that we have all gone to, including some that Brooklyn Vegan put on through the years.
That's right.
What are some of your guys' memories of Music Hall Williamsburg?
Well, I'll shout out one of those Brooklyn Vegan presented shows. It was a Haiti benefit that had St. Vincent, Bon Iver, Britt Daniel of Spoon. There was comedy. It was
Zach
incredible.
Galifianakis.
Yes. And I think that show happened before I was contributing to Brooklyn Vegan, but not long before. So I was obviously aware of Brooklyn Vegan, and I was a fan. But yeah, I went to that show, and that's one of those shows that I always think back to as like, it was so cool that I was able to be in that room with all those people.
And it was really fun to put together. It was the last time that I emailed personally with St. Vincent. Among my memories of that show, talking in that email thread with her about her love of Pearl Jam. I remember the trials of sourcing a piano for Zach Galifianakis. We actually did manage to get a piano in the venue on stage for him. And yeah, just actually not the only time I saw Bon Iver in Music Hall Williamsburg. Obviously, he went on to be way too big for that venue, but he played there at least one or two other times. I was probably at all of them.
I was not at that show, but if I'm not mistaken, that's the night Bon Iver and St. Vincent covered Jolene.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that's the one.
You should watch that on YouTube if you've never seen it. Really, really, really magical cover. And I mean, not that Jolene is, was ever not a iconic song, but I feel like, they covered it before it started getting covered constantly like it does more recently. I feel like when they covered it, it wasn't as covered in the indie world, I'll say.
Right. And that was not the only show that we did at that venue. With the very first time Brooklyn Vegan did a show in Brooklyn was at Music Hall of Williamsburg in 2008. I put on our official CMJ show at Bowery Ballroom in Manhattan, still going strong, Bowery Ballroom, in 2007, and then got the courage to move to Brooklyn in 2008. It's crazy to say now that you needed courage to do a show in Brooklyn. And I don't mean that because the streets were dangerous or anything. I mean that because I was, the venues were in Manhattan, and you're scared. Will people go to Brooklyn for a show? I lived in Brooklyn. Our website was named after Brooklyn, but music, that was back when Williamsburg, which it's a given now that all the shows happen in Williamsburg, but not even Williamsburg anymore. Now Bush, even now, I mean, that it's like a last remaining venue that's still in Williamsburg, right? It's moved on to Bushwick and Ridgewood.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that, it'll be replaced by like an Urban Outfitters or something like that.
I mean, that area is now basically Soho.
It's like an outdoor mall.
Really is.
Yeah.
It's crazy because for so long there was like an abandoned lot or an empty lot across the street from Music Hall of Williamsburg. And then, obviously there's like
Apple stores and designer, really expensive clothes.
Yeah. I lived in the neighborhood when North 6 existed and Music Hall of Williamsburg opened, and I still live there actually, somehow right up the street. The first show that I saw at Music Hall was about a week after it opened, and it was Apples in Stereo and Aqueduct. And mostly what I remember about that show is just how much they transformed North 6, which was almost like a DIY venue, basically into a second Bowery Ballroom. From the basement bar to the balconies and that sort of stuff. It was kind of jaw dropping, like how pro it seemed, and still what was a very wouldn't call Williamsburg rough in 2007, but it was not what it is now. And then about 2 weeks after that, I saw a pretty legendary show. It was Les Savvy Fav and this band Cheeseburger, and the Les Savvy Fav set was so wild that they got banned from the venue until last year. Les Savvy Fav put out their first record in like 10 years last year, and they did their record release show there. And they said on stage, like Tim said, that it was the first time they'd been allowed to play there since like the first month that Music Hall of Williamsburg was open. And yeah, other memorable shows like LCD Sound System's This Is Happening release show I saw there. I saw Jarvis Cocker play there once, Ride's first U.S. reunion show, Lush's first U.S. reunion show. And I'm trying to remember, Dave and Amanda, I know you were there. What was the holiday show from like 10 years ago?
Was it our holiday show?
Yeah, our holiday show.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
I am remembering this, but I'm struggling to think who played.
It was British singer, amazing guitarist.
Oh,
Paul McCartney.
Anna Calvi?
Oh,
Anna
right.
Calvi.
Anna Calvi. Thank
Yes, that show was so good.
Incredible show. And that was probably this time of year, like
I miss her,
probably
by the
12
way.
years
Where
ago.
are you, Anna Calvi?
She's scoring TV shows. That's what she's doing now. So.
True.
Oh, and by the way, I never said who played that 2008 Brooklyn Vegan CMJ show. That was Passion Pit headlining that one, who 4.5 years later headlined Madison Square Garden.
And that was with like Ponytail, right?
Yes, a Ponytail, a band I miss a lot. They were fun.
Another Brooklyn Vegan CMJ show at Music Hall of Williamsburg that I found myself thinking of last night had the Antlers and Laura Marling and Nathaniel Radcliffe, who
Also just headlined Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that's what. What band did he have at the time? He was
called The Wheel at the time, maybe?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I think so. And then he became just Nathaniel Ratliff and went on to be very big. Yeah, no, that great show. Antlers, who also released an album this year.
Yeah. So it looks like Music Hall of Williamsburg is going to be open pretty much through the entirety of 2026, but that's going to be it. So go see shows there while you can.
Yeah, go out to a show at Music Hall of Williamsburg. I am certainly going to try my best to.
Amanda and I saw two bands on our current year-end list in 2014 there, Deaf Heaven and No Joy.
Was that one show?
It was one show.
Oh, wow.
Amanda and I also were there in 2016 for Mitski Japanese Breakfast and Jay Som.
That was another really incredible show.
But if we're shouting out really memorable music hall memories, I'll give the one that is kind of a humble brag that I was even able to be in existence. It is the opposite of Bill's cool story about seeing apples in stereo, or also the opposite of getting to see Mitski and Passion Pit and these now massive artists. But Blink-182 did an underplay there in, I think, 2013 with Dive opening. And seeing the music hall crowd circle pit to Josie by a band who then played arenas and now play stadiums. Top 10 moment of my life as a music fan, I think. So thank you, Music Hall of Williamsburg. And yeah, we'll miss you.
And until next week, go read all our end of year lists at BrooklynVegan.com. We hope you're having happy holidays, happy Hanukkah. We'll speak to you again, I think, before Christmas. So stay tuned. And yeah.
Oh, and please go check out the BV Interviews podcast. I did an interview with Flogging Molly this week. Dave King opened up for the first time since his traumatic brain injury earlier this year about his experience. The band's getting back on stage for their own cruise next year. It was a really touching conversation because it was amazing to hear that Dave is doing well. So do check that out if you've listened this far.
And thank you, Bill and Amanda, as always, for stopping by.
Of course.
Thank you for having us.
Talk to you all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with new episodes of BV Weekly. And in between the episodes, you can always get much more from us at BrooklynVegan.com, on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can pick up records from us at shop.BrooklynVegan.com. And if you like what you hear, tell your friends about us, subscribe to the show, give us a good rating. All that little stuff goes a really long way. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. So until then, thank you again, and see you next time.